What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you, or rather an EP review this time, because this time I'm going to go over the newest offering from Primitive Man with their Insurmountable EP. Yet another one that came out on Friday the 13th. This comes out on Closed Casket Activities. This band formed in Denver, Colorado in 2012. This is their second EP. They have 3 full lengths and then, a litany of splits and such. And this is, insanely heavy. Like, this is one of the heaviest bands I think I've heard in recent years. I've actually seen this band live, and they about caved my fucking skull in with just tone and distance and ugliness. This is sludge metal, doom metal, noise, death metal. It's insanely heavy and is the most caustic aspects of all those things, and it comes together once again very furiously and very noisily. I think that's a word. I was definitely reminded of how heavy their last album was, Immersion. John and I reviewed that one, and we were both kind of just spellbound as to how sonically and I would say emotionally dark that album was. It's an insanely heavy album that just revels in how much distance and noise and scathing soundscapes that it can create. And once again, these guys are back with a new offering, and this is no short EP. This is a 38-minute EP, but only 4 tracks. So yeah, these tracks are bulky. The opening track is the longest track on here at over 12 minutes, This Life, which I don't even think the word life should be in there, because this does not sound like anything that is life-affirming. This is death, doom, bleakness, darkness. This is like slowly being lowered into a giant pit of cement and tar and wood chippings. I don't know, man. It's just slow and it's dingy, and I mean, it's kind of what I expected. Like, I've been listening to Primitive Man for a while, and I know what they're about, and it's exactly what they're about, though I think the song just kind of lays on the noise a little bit. Now, production-wise, this band goes for sonically massive. The guitars are very much out front, the drums do cut through, and they are very punchy, and then kind of a little bit further back are the vocals, which range from growls, howls, to just cavernous screams. It actually kind of sounds like the screams are being tortured by the growls. Like, it's just sort of a fucked up sounding album, but for what they're going for, very well mixed, and my God, inescapably heavy. Like, there are no moments on here for you to really kind of catch your breath and just kind of like let the mood simmer down. It's always dark, it's always loud, even when the guitars are kind of stepping back just in favor of raw noise or a thudding bass, or even a really slow kind of drum rhythm with spacey atmosphere behind it. I mean, like, not the pleasant sci-fi, like, nerdy spacey, like the inside of a black hole, or a derelict spaceship infested with aliens that want to get your face pregnant, like that kind of atmosphere. The riffs are droning, they're very atonal, very distant. I mean, I would almost not even call them necessarily riffs. A lot of them are just single chords that they let drone out and then sort of like pump a lot of feedback behind them. Like, towards the 7-minute mark of this opening track, there are some more like discernible riffs, like like there's a little bit of a chord progression you can hear or melody, but for the most part it is about creating that atmosphere. Like, there's rarely anything ever palm muted on here. It's pretty much strum and then just let that fucking single chord ring out into the abyss and haunt you. They pretty much do anything they can to make this sound as oppressive as possible, and like literally the weight of not only just how dark and foreboding this album is, but the raw heaviness of it just sort of just pushes you down. It just sort of just beats the living shit out of you, but very slowly. In fact, I would say this opening track is essentially the soundtrack to the world ending very slowly. But honestly, I think my favorite track on here was Caged Intimacy, because this one kind of showcases a little bit more of the way of dynamics. Like, sure, they're heavier in hell, they can be noisier in hell. Like, there's constantly something going at all times that is droning and hissing and crackling on this album. But this song actually creates some really interesting riffs, and there's some interesting changes of pace. The song opens up with these massive bending, doomy riffs, and it just sets the mood right away. It doesn't really take as much time to build up because there's a reason, and I'll get into that. And they really lay on this drone in this kind of slow, lumbering groove, but it takes an interesting shift almost in like black metal territory where it gets into blast beats and you get this dissonant strumming. It's, again, atonal as hell. I don't even know if that's like a real chord they're playing, but it's noisy. It's just very, like, just nasty sounding. It doesn't sound pleasant at all, but I don't think this is an album you sit back and just like, you know what, I'm just gonna unwind to a little bit of Primitive Man and kick my feet back. I just don't see that. Now, I'm sure there are people that do, but I'm not one of them. But in terms of listening to something that would flat out horrify me and push the levels of accessibility in terms of just something super chaotic and noisy but slow and just dirty sounding, I don't know, this has got an interesting appeal. But amongst all this, you know, darkness and dread and dripping ooze, I just feel like that's kind of part of the recording here. There's some really cool hooks. There's some like descending dissonance, you know, tremolos and riffs that I think that were actually kind of hooky. And it pretty much comes back slower and heavier towards the end, which I'm kind of a sucker for that. Play that riff again, but slower and meaner, and they did exactly that. And the song really comes together very well, and it's over 10 minutes. I think it's might be 11 minutes long, and honestly it's the big standout for me. Like, I think the opening track is really good. Like, it definitely sets the pace for the mood and all that shit, but in terms of like generating more of a memorable song, it's definitely Caged Intimacy. Now, the other two songs in here are pretty interesting. One of them is a Smashing Pumpkins cover of the song Quiet. And honestly, I'm not the biggest Smashing Pumpkins fan. It has mostly something to do with Billy Corgan's voice. I just, I don't like it at all. But that's me. But honestly, that doesn't fucking matter with this cover because it sounds nothing like the original. I actually went back and listened to the original and then listened to this again and then listened to the original again. And I was like, they just fuck up and just say, like, no, it's the Smashing Pumpkins Quiet. I was like, are you sure it's not your Quiet? Because, like, literally nothing sounds like the original. Like, it sounds like a completely different song. They completely eviscerated the song, deconstructed it in the void, which is probably their studio, and turned it into this caustic, evil thing. The only melody on there that I think I could pick up that sounded like the original is maybe the bass line on it, but even that's broken down to like the bare notes, and of course the bass sounds, you know, horrific and just gnarly as hell. So in terms of making a cover of your own, it's fucking theirs. That's 100% Primitive Man, and it sounds nothing like Smashing Pumpkins, which, again, I'm not a Smashing Pumpkins fan, so kind of didn't mind it, but it was really interesting comparing the two. I just think it's a very strange pick for this band. Like, I would expect them to cover something, I don't know, like a Helmet cover, because they're very noisy and squealy too, or something like that. It's just, I don't know, like a very strange pick, but again, they kind of made it their own, made it completely unrecognizable, and I don't know, just kind of interesting. And then we have the song Boiled, and I use the term song loosely. This is just a 7-minute noise track. It's just ambient noise and feedback and static and like droning bass. Like, there's really nothing about it that is essentially a song. It's just sort of a long interlude slash kind of an annoyance. I don't get why this one's here. Like, I know they do noise tracks, but I figured they would save that mostly for full lengths where there's actually going to be more songs on it. This just seems like it's there to take up over 7 minutes of time just to make this a longer EP. I don't know, like, it doesn't necessarily like segue well into the next track, which is Caged Intimacy, which I think is just a fucking awesome song. It's just kind of there, and after about 3 minutes I was done with it, but I had to listen to the rest of it just to see, is like, maybe it will build up into something, and it does get louder, but that's about it. And I know noise is like a huge part of their sound, but at the same time, this is an EP, and one 7-minute noise track on, you know, a relatively shorter offering just kind of feels like a waste of space on there. Like, the noisy elements are still on here. Like, there's long segues of just droning noise on the bigger tracks in here, but they go into something. They go into a giant heavy section or a more atmospheric section that's actually more musical. This is just kind of there. And, you know, atmosphere is definitely important, especially with a band like this, but there's such thing as too much atmosphere, and I think this is kind of where it got just to be a bit too much. But overall, I think this was another brutal, nasty, heavy, dark, oppressive offering from a band that pretty much has perfected all those things when it comes down to music. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. This is a pretty solid EP. There are, I would say, 2 standout tracks in here, and they both happen to be the longer ones, so most of this is really good. The boiled interlude noise track, I just feel like that is kind of unnecessary. Like, it really doesn't do much for the EP itself. And the cover, I think, is just really interesting. Like, I think it's a pretty decent track. It's just sort of an odd pick there, but I've never been a Smashing Pumpkins fan. But to totally just rip it apart and reconstruct it out of, like, bones and sinew and grossness, kind of make it look like one of the creatures you'd see in the Dead Space games. Yeah, no, that's pretty damn cool. If you're looking for a band that pushes the levels of heavy, both sonically and just oppressively, definitely check this out. It is yet another nasty offering. I strongly recommend Immersion. That's probably my favorite of their albums so far. But honestly, if you like noise, if you like sludge, if you like death doom, if you like maybe even post-metal, I don't know. If you just like really, really heavy stuff that's also really slow and just really dark, check this out. Check out all their stuff. I guarantee you it'll be heavy. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there will be a link down below. We will be adding some content to Patreon eventually. We've been kind of ignoring it, but we have some ideas, and we're going to start throwing them out there after we get back from MDF. But we also have t-shirts available at thrallsmetal.com. If you would like one of those, there'll be a link down below for that. There will also be a link down there for Denver Death Fest. If you are a band, not you specifically, like you as a person, I don't know, you might be a one-man band. I don't know who I'm talking to right now. But if you know a band or have a band or, you know, something like that, there is a link down below with a form there that you can fill out to actually enter in to be part of this Denver Death Fest thing. It'll be going on from September 30th to October 2nd. And yeah, we'd like to get some more entries on there. And yeah, we're looking at building this huge thing. I'm, again, not the person to talk to about this. If you have questions about it, I would direct those towards Miller and John. They definitely know more about this. I've been kind of handling more of the day-to-day stuff, but either way, definitely check out the link, and yeah, we're looking to see if we can start an annual thing here. So once again, I thank all of you for watching. You guys all fucking rule. This has been, again, such a fun ride, and it is definitely due to you. Might be partially due to the music too, but I would say, like, mostly due to you guys. So thank you once again for watching, and we will catch you later.